Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Paul Vasconcelos of Lesley University up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Matt.
No, thanks for being here. Well, let's start off talking about recruiting. That tends to be a topic everybody's always interested in. So when do you start kind of recruiting players, talking to players, really getting in the hot and heavy of it to build your classes?
Junior year,
Yeah.
it's pretty hot and heavy. Occasionally you get a kid or a sophomore reaching out, but usually junior year, we look at kids in the showcases, whether it's the GA stuff or the ECNL, even some of the top elite showcases. We get really, really focused and concentrated their junior year because that's, to be honest, that's when they become focused and when they become concentrated on schools.
Sure. I know it ebbs and flows, but how many inbound contacts would you say you're sifting through in any given week?
To be honest, we're so selective and we have a smaller filter than some of those big, so we don't have cast a really big recruiting net. Everything our staff does is a little unorthodox compared to most. For instance, we only bring in 7 every year. That's our magic number is 7. Because in a perfect world, if you get 7 times the 4 classes, you get your 28 player roster, and 28 is something that we can manage. It does 2 things. 28 gives you enough depth, and 28 is enough for you to manage. I feel really I sympathize with a lot of my colleagues and peers out there that have like 35, 40 players on their roster, and I can imagine trying to keep everybody happy and all that stuff. So we don't have that issue here. Luckily, administration has never given me any type of direction as far as the size of my roster. So it trickles down to the recruiting aspect, which is magic number is 7 for the most part.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. In terms of, tournaments and, must-have places to go to see players, where are you usually looking to watch players? What kind of tournaments are you going to usually every year?
Yeah, so most of our team is actually from the West Coast. We actually have 2 players from Massachusetts. We have about 15 or 16 from California. Most of our teams, Texas, Colorado, Chicago, we don't really, it isn't that we don't recruit here in Mass, it's just the level of player we're looking for is maybe not looking to go to school down the street, so to speak. Kids want to try something different. So with that said, you'll see us in Texas, you'll see us in San Diego, you see us in NorCal. We go to the Florida Showcase, North Carolina, a lot of the GA, ECNL stuff. That's predominantly where we do the bulk of our recruiting.
Yeah, that was kind of wild because when you look at Division III schools, a lot of them tend to be pretty regionally focused, but you guys have that crazy amount of West Coast and kind of folks from all over. Kind of what drives that difference in you guys as, say, someone else in your conference that may not have that diversity of geography?
Yeah, I think it started off as one thing. It started off with, California kids, I shouldn't just put a label on there, but I think they just want to try something different, and I really can't think of anything more different than LA to Boston as far as, whether it's how the streets are made up or how college life or how people handle themselves or the city itself or weather or anything like that. We found that just a lot of kids just want to have a different experience for 4 years, and Boston, I'm obviously super biased, but I think it's a pretty awesome city. It's it's the college city in America. There's 25 universities within 10 miles of here. And I think at the end of the day, it was a combination of zip code and then the fact, we've been really successful over the years. And I think that players are starting to look at things like, you know what, I could go to this program, much bigger name, much bigger label, much bigger, standing in the NCAA paradox. But at the same time, it's, maybe they wouldn't play till their junior, or maybe they're going to get redshirted, or maybe that's not appealing to them, and they could come here and they can play right away if they're playing to a certain level. And luckily we've been successful. So I think the combination of being able to play, winning, and living in a great city, I think those are the 3 things.
No, that makes perfect sense. What about camps? Do you guys do your own camps? Do you and your staff work other camps? How do they fit into your overall recruiting process?
Great question. We do not do any camps. We don't host any. We don't work any. Again, like I said in the beginning, we're super unorthodox. We would much rather go see someone play in a showcase where they're losing. So this is my take. When you're at camp, or if I'm working someone's camp and your team's losing 3-0, you have no dog in the fight. It's a camp game. But if you're playing for your ECNL team and you're playing in the playoffs and you're down San Diego and you're losing 2-1, we want to see what you're like in a competitive aspect where you have a vested interest in the result of the game. So that's our take on it. And as far as ID camps, when you're only looking to bring in 7, not for nothing, but why are you going to camp with 80 kids when they only want 7? So.
Okay, that's fair enough. Well, when you're looking at those players at ECNL events or any other events, what is your kind of hierarchy of what you're looking for, whether that's on the field attributes or off the field attributes?
So I think everyone can pretty much say across the board, everyone can play. Obviously, some are more athletic or cleaner on the ball or just more technical or just, soccer IQs maybe a little higher. But we look at things like, what do you like when you get subbed out? What do you like when you didn't start? What do you like when if you're a goalkeeper and you're getting shelled and you're losing 3 or 4-0? How are you digging the ball out of the back of the net? Are you kicking it up? Are you clapping it up? Let's go defense. Are you a cheerleader for your team? 3-4 years down the road, you'll be a junior in college, and if you're playing in the NCAAs and it's a really, really high stress environment, are you the type to point fingers? Are you the type to put your shoulders in and put your head down? Or are you the one that wants to rally your team up and get them going? So that's definitely what we look for as far as off the field. On the field is just, probably no different than anybody else. Just high soccer IQ kids who are clean on the ball and play in good systems that are similar to ours. And obviously athleticism is paramount.
Okay. Now I know you say you guys are very specific in who you're recruiting and very targeted. So does that include any sort of international students, transfer students? How do they fit in at all, if at all, with your recruiting?
Yeah, so we've had internationals in the past. It really has to be a two-way road. Like they want to come to Lesley, they want to go to school in Cambridge, they want to study something that we specifically do really, really well at, or they have a career path they want to go, or maybe they just want to live in Boston. They've always wanted to live in Boston. They want to be in Cambridge. As far as transfers, we don't do too much incoming transfers, or obviously not a lot of kids leave the program, but every once in a while we'll come across a kid who we lost in the recruiting process, in the original recruiting process, and they say, "Hey, coach, thanks for your time, but I've decided to go to ABC College," and we 10 times out of 10, we always wish them well. Congratulations. We wish you all the best. And every once in a while, we'll get a kid back in November, December, their freshman year. Hey, ABC wasn't what I thought it was. Or maybe I didn't have a great experience. Do you remember who I am? I like to, every once in a while, we'll get kids like that. But transfer in the sense of, I think a lot of it has to do with, some of it is socioeconomic, some of it is just a certain type of demographic. We're a private university in Cambridge, and to ask a kid who's going to a local community college for next to nothing to all of a sudden, pay for a private school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, of all places, it could be a little bit daunting for families. So we try to avoid those situations.
Well, that's a perfect lead into my next question, which, everybody, especially us parents who might be writing those checks, are always curious about the final bill side of things. So, obviously there's no athletic money there, but and I'm not holding you to hardcore numbers
No.
or specifics, but what is an incoming student? What do you, a typical soccer player, what are they going to be walking into with regards to academic money, merit money, any kind of scholarship money? What's the overall kind of cost package look like on average?
That's a fair question. So the cost, room, board, and tuition per year is $53,000 a year. That's everything included, which is obviously a lot of money. But on our street, we're like the TJ Maxx or the Marshalls, with MIT and Harvard. Harvard literally across the street and MIT down the street. So 53, comparatively speaking to them, it's not nowhere near, but it's still a lot of money. And for working families who have maybe multiple kids that want to go to college, I can only, ascertain that it is a lot of money. With that said, every single one of my players is here on academic scholarship. Some get more than others. We have a team GPA of 3.75. So we recruit right out of the box kids who are high academic kids, because when you go to the showcase and you fall in love with a kid and maybe they're a 2.9, what's the use of falling in love with a kid that you can't get in? Or if by some way they get in, they get no money. And now, coach, I really like your school, I like you, but my family can't just can't afford this.
Right.
And I really don't want to put families in that position to have to feel like they're not doing everything they can to support their child. So I try to avoid those situations. We only go after. So when we go to the showcase, the last thing I'll say is, along with the off the field stuff and the on field stuff, we look for a kid that is going to be a good fit academically. It's paramount. I have no interest of bringing in a young lady who, isn't going to be academically successful here. But now going back to the scholarship thing, for the most part, we give us a sizable amount. We give between $13,000 to $15,000 guaranteed each year scholarship, which, if you get them under 40 at that point, then financial aid kicks in, and then we have the unique situation of being in Cambridge. So a lot of our players live off of campus, and you can save a lot of money by living off campus. So we can get some players down towards the 25 area. All of a sudden, 25,000 still a lot of money. Not going to say it's not, but it's a 4-year Cambridge education, private education.
Sure. No, that makes sense. Well, you've already mentioned some of the great things about the school's location, but there's probably a lot of people out there who aren't even familiar that Lesley exists.
Sure.
Especially folks that aren't from that New England area.
Mhm.
So, besides what I can read on the website, clue me into some of the awesome things about Lesley that folks may want to know.
So from a social aspect, so you get the best of both worlds. Academically, super private, super small. You will literally be in classrooms with 16, 15 kids, students to a professor. All of our classes are taught by professors. Very, very small private academic setting. The professors will know your name. They'll know who you are. They'll know when you're not in class. The students will get to know their professors. The students really have a vested interest in their own education and getting in their 4 years really taking everything they can out of the academic piece here. But then socially speaking, there's 250,000 college students here. So like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night in the off season, you're sadly mistaken if you think you're going to find one of our players on campus. It's, they have a saying here, if you're bored at Lesley, it's your fault. And it's basically it comes down to our girls will be at Celtics games, Red Sox, Patriots, Bruins, Boston Marathon, the Charles River Regatta, Harvard Yale games, and then whatever else is going on in the other 26 universities that you can jump on a subway and go to. None of our girls have a car. None of our players need a car. Public transportation is wonderful here, but the city's not for everyone. I say that a lot. The city is not for everyone. We're the type of program, like I just had a kid visit, and the first thing out of my mouth was, I'm going to tell you all the reasons not to come here. And it kind of caught them off guard because they're used to going to play, oh, this is great. This is great. I don't know what they like. I don't know. Some kids might come to Cambridge and be like, this is too much. I want to go to the quintessential, pretty campus in the middle of the woods. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely. Well, you talked a lot about the high academic standards and everything that's there at the school. So, being a student athlete at the collegiate level is always a new experience for high school kids coming in. So, how specifically do your students balance the rigors of their academics with the rigors of being an athlete, and what kind of support systems are there in place at the school?
I'll be honest with you, Matt. So I used to talk in length about what we have in place, and we do have a center of academic achievement, we have tutors, we have academic mentors, we have a full-time student athlete academic advisor. All these things are wonderful, but what I just realized a couple years back was, if I'm recruiting really top notch high academic kids, they've already been doing it for 4 years. And to be totally honest with you, if you've been juggling it at the high school level for 4 years, college is going to be a breeze. And I'm sure some parents and some academic people are going to be like, "What are you talking about?" But I firmly believe that. So I have a son that's in high school, and there's literally 2 to 3 hours every day of classes that are not going to be. They're just not for him. It's almost like not a waste of time. I don't want to make it sound like high school is a waste of time. It's just they're not going to study that in college. It's not going to be something for them going forward. So, now you get those 2, 3 hours a day back, and you're taking 4 classes or 5 classes a semester, and you've been a 4.0 student all your career in high school. So what's going to change all of a sudden in college just because you're playing college soccer? I do think we do take up a little more time in the sense that maybe practice, we have film sessions, and we have team meetings, and we have scouting reports that we go over, and there's a lot more reading as far as email, watching film, and things like that. But certainly nothing that the student athletes that we're recruiting can't handle.
Okay. Can you walk me through a kind of average typical week during the season in terms of when is class, when is practice, when days do you usually play games, how does your travel work, that kind of thing?
Sure. So we're usually like a Wednesday, Saturday. Sometimes we'll do like a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday if we're trying to cram in more games. Schedule, it probably isn't very much, except for the back end in the evening. So we're exclusively a night program. We only train at night. We only have weeknight home games. And that is wonderful for our student athletes because we're not asking them to miss class or have any scheduled conflicts or anything like that. From time to time, if we have a road game and we have to go away and it's a 4 p.m. game, then obviously we're going to miss some classes. And just like every other university, the professors sign off on it, and it's known prior to it happening. But we really back it up by saying things, the academic piece, by saying things like, "Hey, we only practice at 7 p.m. at night, so we're not going to have any conflicts with your class. You're not going to." There's so many kids out there, "Coach, I need to take this class next semester at 3 p.m., but we have practice," and the coaches, they're kind of hamstrung. They don't know what to do either. We don't have that issue here. So as far as the rest of the schedule during the day, I can't believe it's anything different than anywhere else. So it's a combination of going to class, getting ready for papers, eating, working out, taking naps, getting ready for class, going to class, meeting up for lunch, going to see the athletic trainer, maybe, God forbid, they watch some film, things like that. But it's usually a rotation of class, writing papers, lots of reading here at Lesley. So yeah, I would say it's a combination of those things.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team and the soccer side of things. I mean, you mentioned a little bit about your roster. So what would you say? You said about 7 players a season, but what would you say is your target roster size each year?
Target roster is 28. So this fall we're going with 24, and very, very small roster for the most part. It's a small roster for college, but it kind of backs up what I said earlier, which is we only want players who want to be here. So we're not going to not to sound pessimistic, but we're just not going to take a player for the sake of taking a player. We're not, if that person, and we do understand the human element here, if we're not going to make them have a good student athlete experience here, we're not going to take them on the team just so we can say we have 27 or 28. So this year, we found 24 players that we really like. We're very optimistic. We're conference defending champs, and we went to the NCAA tournament, and we expect that same thing again this year. But to answer your question, 28 is the ideal number, but only if it's a 28 that are really truly excited to be here and really want to be here. We have no interest in, carrying 24 and then 4 of those are just like, yeah, I wonder what it'd been like if I went to so and so, or this was my second choice and I didn't get into ABC, and I wonder what it would have been like if I played at, XYZ college. We don't want that. We want our student athletes to be fully bought in.
Okay. Well, what about your soccer staff? How big is your staff? What other kind of support staff that you have maybe there in the athletic department? What role does everybody play?
Yeah, so we've gone under tremendous growth within the athletic department here at the university. For years, I was the only full-time coach here, and in recent years, we've hired 7 new full-time coaches. We have an administration, new president that's really bought into the NCAA student athlete, not only the student athlete experience, but what it does for the greater good of the university when you have student athletes on campus. And that is a byproduct of bringing in full-time coaches and having offices here, and helps with retention. So that's on the macro side. On the micro side, I have 3 wonderful assistants, all female staff. I'm the only guy by myself from middle of August to pretty much middle of November. I'm the only guy around, and I'm better for it. I'm better. I'm a better dad to my daughter. I'm a better coach to my players. Um, all played at the collegiate level, all have a lot of say in how we do things. 2 of my assistants have been with me for over 4 years, which shows a lot of loyalty here in the city, because they could easily go to another program and probably make more money, but they choose to stay here because they really bought into what we do. They genuinely love the program.
Well, that's great. Well, how would you describe, your style of coaching and the team style of play?
Did you chop up on me?
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Coach? Can you hear me now?
Oh, lost you there. I lost you for a second. I think I got you now.
All right. Can you describe, your style of coaching and the team style of play?
Sure. So I'm Portuguese, and we, we just do it. Every part of the world has a style of play, or how they do things, and how they buy into things. And my style is, let me preface everything by saying, if I have 11 great players on the field, we're gonna win, and it literally has nothing to do with what I say or do within those 90 minutes. Us as coaches, we feel that we're more important than we really are. 11 players, that's who's winning the game. At training is when I do the bulk of my talking. I really don't talk too much during match times. Halftime, I might talk for 2 minutes of the 15. At the end of the game, I get them all pretty much. Style of play is very triangle based, very diamond, very third attacker. Very much recognizing overloads, going the other way with it, keeping the ball away from pressure. At the same time, sucking in defenses and putting the ball out, and maybe not different than a lot of programs, but we try to play a really high cerebral soccer with a good tactical IQ.
Okay. The last question, well, next to last question, what, in terms of your off season, right? So whether that's the spring, quote unquote, semester, or even summer, but what does your off season tend to look like, and what the players are doing?
So the NCAA Division III is very hands off in the off season. It's probably why D3 is so popular, because we cannot micromanage you. It's your time. The players do ask for a strength and conditioning packet. They do, hey, coach, what can I work on? And while they're here at the school, we say, hey, this is what you can work on, this, and that, and here you go. But we can't be, monitoring or regulating or anything like that, and making sure. So it's very much left to the student athlete, as far as what they want, what kind of shape do they want to come in? What did they really improve over the summer? Are they playing on a U23 team or a club team in the summer, or are they, not? And more often than not, within the first 2 days of preseason, we can tell who did the work and who didn't. The other thing we don't do is we don't do cookie cutter workouts for everyone. A player who's 5'5", 120 isn't going to get the same packet of a 5'8", 150. Someone who needs to work on winning balls in the air, I'm not going to give them a packet on working with their feet when they need to work on winning balls in the air.
Makes sense. Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. We've covered a lot of ground, but the last question I always like to end the same way is, what didn't we talk about? What didn't we cover? Whether it's about soccer, recruiting, the school, or is there anything else you would like prospects to know, or anything else you want to
Yeah,
reiterate?
yeah, actually, yeah, I want to take it's a great, thanks for letting me say it. So, um, go somewhere where you are wanted. Go somewhere where you know that the coaching staff actually knows who you are, um, where you go to school, what position you play. They've actually watched you play. They've made the commitment to fly across the country and go watch you play. Um, it just shows that they have a vested interest in you. Um, uh, Go play for a coaching staff that you see yourself playing for. Um, Along with, I talk about something called the broken leg syndrome, which is, God forbid, you hurt yourself and you can't play soccer anymore. Do you like where you are going to school? And um, if you don't, if you don't see yourself going to school there, the rest of your soccer's, for the most part, it's middle of August to, pretty much for us, it's the middle of November, and then you got to live there from November until May. And if you don't like where you live from November to May, then maybe you should think about looking at another school. But go somewhere where you wanted, go somewhere where you want to live. Um, uh, for definitely for a coaching staff that you feel the energy, like, hey, their emails to you have your name in them. It isn't hello common and went out to like 5,000 kids. It actually has your name in it. Um, and you could, I think it says a lot. My son is going through the recruiting process, and luckily I'm somewhat experienced in this, and I told my son, and he loves, typical 16, 17-year-old boy, just, you know, big names, and look at their fields and look at their facilities. Oh my God. And then I'll say something like, hey, look, they have 42 players on their team. And the coach has no idea where you're from, and they don't have your major. And it's just simple things like that. So go play for someone that genuinely wants you to be there, and everything else to make sure that you have a wonderful student athlete experience.
Oh, great words of advice. Well, Coach, appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck this fall. And if you get down to the Bradenton area, hitting up IMG or
Yeah,
ECNL
I will.
events, give me a shout, and
All
we'll
right.
grab a cup of coffee. All right.
Sounds good. Go Lynx. Let's go.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Bye.